Hey! Go down. Can't do that.
What? Are you having me on?
It's not fair. That thing's illegal. So here at the American Revolution Museum in Yorktown, we hear some weird stuff occasionally. A lot of myths, some of which you've probably already seen on the channel, but one that we've heard a lot of, not lately, but we've heard a lot of it, is that there's a weapon of the 18th century that is no longer in use by any army, and the reason it's no longer in use is it's been banned. The whole reason it's been banned is it was a weapon that was believed to cause unnecessary suffering on behalf of the victim, and for that reason, armies are just no longer using that weapon anymore. That would be the triangular bayonet right here. And the belief was it caused unnecessary suffering because of that triangular shape that you see right there, right? The whole idea is it's going to go into the body and it's going to be twisted on the way out, and it's going to create a pretty gnarly wound, right? One that a surgeon in the army is going to have a pretty hard time closing. So we did some digging on that, and we have found that the whole reason armies don't use triangular bayonets anymore is they have better ones. You know, not just bayonets, but just better weapons in general that have made this thing pretty obsolete. I mean, you got better weapons out there, just go ahead and use them. But we went ahead and decided that would be our 3-minute myth for this month. We're going to go ahead and dissect that, exactly where the origin of that myth comes from. And while we're talking about it, we're going to go ahead and speak with our regimental surgeon, and he's going to go ahead and show you exactly how a surgeon would close a wound like that. So how would a regimental surgeon in the Army go about treating a kind of wound like this?
All right, well, the thing to keep in mind is the common misconception about puncture wounds. You know, people talk about the shape of wound that a bayonet makes. I don't know that it's substantially different than the big round hole that's made by a bullet. And the fact is, a puncture wound is dangerous regardless of what makes it. The shape is really irrelevant. As a puncture wound, typically you're going to try to pack the wound and stop the bleeding. If at all possible, of course, certainly you would try to get to any major arteries, pull those out and tie them off with a ligature. But as far as burning it, that's a last resort, so cautery is sometimes used. But you know, the basic thing to keep in mind is that a puncture wound needs to be kept open so that it will heal from the inside out. In some of the medical texts, you really don't see much about bayonets at all. What is in fact mentioned is the bullet, and particularly with a wound that passes completely through, or with some of those very deep sucking wounds, you need to keep them open. So often they talk about taking forceps and dilating the wound so that it will drain, and that's true entry wound and exit wound. Or sometimes putting what's called a tent, which would be rolled up linen that would be keeping the wound open, eased out over time so that that wound would close from the inside towards the surface. It's one of the things that makes that puncture wound so dangerous, is it has to heal from the inside out. You do not sew it up on the outside. That creates an abscess, and that is a dangerous situation.
So there was mention, or supposedly mention, of bayonets like this being banned later on throughout history. Has there been any mention of that?
No, and I actually looked at a thing where a modern military lawyer has gone through all the texts, and there really is nothing on these. They are far more dangerous, far more nasty wounds produced by other types of means, where a hole in the body is probably the least of your worries there. So
okay.
No, there's nothing in the literature really to substantiate that. These were never outlawed.